Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live stream this evening. And I have with me Pastor Tita. Pastor Tita, will you introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening to everyone and good evening, Bishop Megan. My name is Teresita Valeriano, and I grew up with the nickname, and you will find more Filipinos with nicknames, so you can call me Tita. And I'm the youngest of 12 in the family of the Valeriano clan, and grew up third generation Lutheran back home in the Philippines when the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod started to put out and congregations after World War II. So I'm so proud to be part of a family that pioneered one of the congregations of the Lutheran Church in the Philippines. I am married to Dr. Jennifer Caroline Snow, who teaches at the Church Divinity School of the Pacific, the Episcopal Seminary in Berkeley. And we have a energetic, tall, and funny, and love to eat cherries and watermelons nowadays. Named Taal, who is going to third grade this coming school year. So I think that's about it.
My kids are just running up the stairs, so you might hear them for a second. But would you be willing to tell us a little bit about church vitality and how people can get involved in that?
Yes, of course. So this is a good timing for me as a new DEM, that time that we are shifting from new and renewing congregations to uh, church vitality. And it's not like a creation of the church-wide top-down, but rather it was a result of many conversations, research, visitations to congregations, consultations with leaders, both in the congregation level and synod level and the conference of bishops. And so there is really a not a demand but a call for the whole church to center our ministry among the congregations and on their vitality. This is a a what the result of listening, a lot of listening and research. So vitality cannot be defined, but it has been described out of those listening, and it came out of the Conference of Bishops in 2018, that congregational vitality is a um, is a life is a uh, communities of Jesus. Vital congregations are communities of Jesus where we invite others and nurture relationship with God, with one another, and with the world and neighbors. So that is a description. Where is a community of Jesus become a life expressing, embodying, and nurturing life-giving relationships? Uh, and so that is the start of it. In our communities right now, there are 5 portals of that we partner in congregational vitality. So as you know, we don't start a church without partnership with these 3 expressions. So there are 5 portals. One is New Start, and I'll talk more about that later. We have currently 9 in that category and 1 strategic ministry. The second one is strategic ministry, and this is a way to support congregations that are doing creative, innovative ministry, but also targeting or focusing on those diversity that they can see around them, and also working on justice work and advocacy. And the third one is holy innovation, and I'll talk to you about that later on as well. The fourth one is what they call a anchor church, and an anchor church is something that how can a congregation partner with another New Start or another congregations where they accompany each other and sharing resources and be able to learn from one another in order for each one of them to grow together in a vital way, even separately, but connected to one another. And I think the other one that I have been uh, trying to as well to work is so and then there are other opportunities like growing church initiatives, late church planter that we are doing with UMC. So those are just expressions of congregational vitality. I think that's about it.
Yeah, that was pretty good. One thing I don't remember if we did. Did we tell people what DEM means?
Oh, that's true. Director for Evangelical Mission. Yes.
And that's something that like every synod has, right?
Mhm.
And they are the kind of lead staff person who's thinking about these kinds of ministries, right?
Definitely. And it used to have a director for outreach, but not all synods actually do have. But now they are hoping that this partnership will continue through this director for evangelical mission position.
One of the things that I've been really kind of proud to learn about during kind of this 12 days that I've been the bishop so far is about some of the different uh, mission congregations that we have in our synod. Would
Mhm.
you be willing to tell people what those are, and especially if you could define what a SWAC is, or a SOC? A SOC? Is that the right acronym?
Yes, yes. You know, my first year as a DEM, someone right away asked, "What is SOC?" You know, but it's not. Of course, that's SAWC, Synodically Authorized Worshiping Community. And to make it short, these are expressions of like communities of Jesus that not yet fully recognized congregation, and they could be. There are many expressions of this, and some of the expressions could be like a chapel. Some other expressions are possibly formerly a congregation, and they decided that they continue to work together or worship together in small group. Another one is like what we are doing, a new start is a SOC or synodically. The other one is there is what they call SOC exploration, which means they are field testing a community together and in partnership with other churches there in that area and see what are the possible ways that we can respond to God if we are called to have a new beginning of a community there. So it is part of the churchwide expression, and the synod is actually the one accompanying it in order to have synodically authorized worshiping community in their respective synod. So that is SOC, synodically authorized worshiping community. Currently, we have 10, and not all of them have started, but they are just the approved ones that we are working on, and some of them are really for a while now. One is Miracles of Faith in Oakland, and our leader is Pastor Greg Brown, and that is in conference, Bridges Conference. Farming Hope is a very unique one led by a lay mission developer. So if you're asking if you are a lay leader and could you be a mission developer, yes, to it. And our bishop is the one who is actually supporting it very much, and to have all those possibilities of lay church planter. So Farming Hope is a social enterprise, and we gather quarterly in a garden somewhere there. And some pastors in San Francisco, especially currently Pastor Bichon is the one helping cultivate, and the ones who are attending are apprentices of this kitchen that served homeless community, but they are also serving really good food at Manis Cafe. If you want, I actually just went there to this Sunday, and then I got the package of lunch that they distribute in the city of San Francisco. The third one is Misión Esperanza, welcoming ministry in Fresno, led by another amazing lay mission developer, Lucy Allen, and it is lodged in a congregation that is very unique in responding to their call to LGBTQ. So Mission Esperanza is an open and affirming Latinx ministry that we are starting, and their conference is Central San Joaquin Valley. Christ Lahu Ministry is also another one that is now a strategic ministry, as they are one of the two expressions of this church, Christ in Visalia. So we, in our synod, you must be very proud that we ordained the first Lahu ordained pastor in the ELCA, Pastor Sami Sinkyo Villay, and they are in Central San Joaquin Valley Conference. Next one is Christ Multicultural Ministry, and yay, they are located at Christ the Good Shepherd in San Jose, and is being led by Pastor Jared Oluwuch, and he was ordained and received to the ELCA for this particular new start, and they are in El Camino Real Conference. Next one is Mission Luterana Greater Stockton, led by Pastor Nelson Rabel, and they are in Sierra Central Valley Conference. The next one is another very unique. This is in partnership with the Presbytery of San Joaquin, Fuente de Gracia, and it's a Latino community led by a pastor, Presbyterian pastor, Alex Gonzalez, and their location is a congregation that closed in Sanger, in San Joaquin, and of course, again, their conference is Central San Joaquin. The eighth one, which are still working and receiving our new mission developer from Lebanon, who's arriving on August 9th, and currently a second-year student at PLTS, is Afghani and Arab Middle Eastern Ministry in Sacramento, to be led by Mr. Sharvel Zegeb. They are part of the Capital Valley Conference. The latest one that was just approved by the council and we're about to start is New Revelation Community Richmond, and we're working on for them to be located in Richmond, to be led by Pastor Donna Allen, and they belong to Bridges Conference. The last one is what I was talking about, the SOC exploration. It's not yet a SOC. It is a way to fill the test. San Francisco/St. Paulo's Synodically Authorized Worshiping Community Exploration, and led by what's this? Approved for ordination, Miss Janet Katari, and they are in conference San Francisco Peninsula Conference. Yeah, that's it. There's a lot, and we are blessed by their diversity as well.
Well, and I thought I would let you know that you have a love sent to you from one of our other Lutherans who was born in the Philippines. So just know you're not the only one participating in this conversation today.
Hi, Edwin.
That up. Yeah. Hey, Edwin. Could you tell us a little bit about the Holy Innovation Project?
Yes, so that is the one that I mentioned that a while ago. So Holy Innovation is something that is not yet done in our church before, and that is a program that is collaboratively done by institutions or several synods. So we applied for a grant for a program that is under Holy Innovation. It is called Asian Lay Evangelist Program. We started early this year, and there are 7 classes for this, and currently we have about 12 to 15 participants from 3 synods, and we're doing it in partnership with PLTS and our Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary and the Asian Ministry Desk of our church-wide expression. So there are 3 synods and 2 institutions that are working on this. The hope is that the participants of this, and they will receive a certificate from PLTS, that they actually went through a program that they can be equipped to become evangelists, supporting their leaders, their pastoral leaders, in their respective congregation, to do outreach and evangelism in their neighborhood. And attached to that is, so now in August 5 and 6 is our third class for this. But it will culminate, and this is what Bishop Megan was asking me to also promote, is it will culminate in the gathering, the biennial gathering of Asian Lutherans and other partners, not only Asians in the ELCA, and the Asian Lutherans in Asia, that we have bilateral relationships. So it happens biennially, and this program of lay evangelists will culminate in that conference that will happen in January 2022. It was postponed. It was supposed to be this year, but the pandemic happened, as we all know. And the Asian Lutheran International Conference have been here for 20 years now. That creates good relationship with one another, learning from one another what's happening in among Asian Lutherans, what are their issues, what are the happening. The last one happened in northern part of Thailand, and an example of this is we address the issue of immigration and migrant workers, and how do we as migrant workers worship and bring our faith in different places where we are, where we go. And so that is Asian Lutheran International Conference that has started 20 years ago, but now we do have other ethnic communities who are now partnering with their counterparts in the continent where they are from. An example of that is Latin American International Conference, or the Latino Lutheran International Conference, and the other one is the African Descent and African Nationals Lutheran International Conference that's happening that has happened in Africa. Is that good? Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. One of the things people might not know is one of the first meetings that I took when I was elected as bishop was to learn more about kind of the global strategy that the ELCA has kind of with Lutherans kind of throughout Asia. And it was just really fun to kind of learn about. It doesn't hurt that it's one of my favorite places to travel to, and some of the folk that I've been kind of happy to worship with during my time in San Francisco. So I'm really excited about everything that you've been up to.
So, Megan, I would like to add that we talked about the three expressions, right, of our church: the congregation, synod, and the church-wide. However, of course, we have the fourth expression, where I used to work. That's my second and fourth call was in the Lutheran World Federation. That is our fourth expression. We know that we are part of more than 70 million Lutherans in the world, connecting with one another, helping one another, and doing a lot of good work, not only in service, but also in justice, in advocacy. And we know that we have an office of Lutheran community office in New York that relates to the United Nations there, and their headquarters in Geneva relate to the United Nations as well. And there are so many things. So I think I wish, and my hope is each congregation would also say that, in their title, a Sierra Pacific Synod congregation, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and then the fourth one is we are a member of the Lutheran World Federation.
Yeah, I would really like that too, because sometimes I think in our synod, there are people who think that the work that I do for our synod is very different from like, oh, and then you have to travel and do things for churchwide. And how I see it is that the places around the globe that a bishop might go to be an ambassador of kind of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, if we are thinking about the full diversity of Lutherans in our synod, I'm going to some people's homelands and to the cultural centers of those Lutherans' lives. And so to to find ways that we can kind of speak and talk about that a little bit more, that this global work that we're doing is a part of, I think, the anti-racism work that we're doing locally here too, is really important to me.
And we are recipients of their gifts, right? We tend to normally say we give gifts to others, but we are recipients of many gifts. We already received a lot of those many gifts present in our neighborhoods, just like what you said. Locally, we can experience that already. Yeah.
Well, we've had, in addition to people celebrating you and the conversation, we've also got some celebrations lifting up some of our folk doing mission development work. So some love for the Reverend Dr. Donna Allen and for Janet Katari.
Definitely. Thank you, Sam. In fact, yes. Yeah.
So I think that's really wonderful. You in the past, it was a very clear pairing for what DEM folk would do, to say that you were doing kind of this mission support work and stewardship work, right? And
Yes.
for some people, that also feels like work that is very separate. Would you be willing to talk a little bit about some of the ways that you see them flowing together?
Definitely. So you might have heard this from, if you are a friend to a Filipino, you might have heard this, that we do not normally have, we say kamusta ka if you ask how are you, but that is not our traditional way of greeting each other. We greet each other, have you eaten? You know, and the reason why I mentioned that is that please, this is an image that I always come to me when you talk about interdependence and generosity. The house that I lived in Metro Manila um, has 3 doors, but the kitchen door is always open, no matter what. You know, of course, in the evening now we lack it, you know, because there are kids in the house. Or however, that door in the kitchen is always open, and my mom would always have food no matter what. And you don't have to call and say, are we going to go there? Can we visit you? No, everyone who comes in, even the vendor of flowers by across our home, um, standing by the door of the Roman Catholic in our town, is welcome to come, and they wash all the flowers in our yard. It is because of this interdependent. All of the people that we come and meet are our economy, and their economy connects with one another. It's like how we see God, who created us fully, belong and relate to the world and the whole creation. And my mom always say that all of us are connected through our sorry to say, bituka, our stomach. Your well-being is connected to my well-being. And so with the witness discipling team, who actually help in nurturing and supporting congregations in their work of faith formation and faith expressions through evangelism, and how we tell our story in God, that our story is part of God's story, that we proclaim the gospel, is very much connected to the stewardship, because again, oikomenos, that we are related to one another. And the mission support, you know, the stewardship team, who is supporting and helping our congregations to find resources, or accompanying each other how to vitalize stewardship ministry, that is not just a portion of the work that you do, but rather related in everything that you do, is connected to one another. The mission support that we give to the synod, that goes to the church wide, comes back to us because of all of the work that we do with new starts. These are all supported by you. So even though Bridges, probably as the San Francisco St. Paulus Sock Exploration, those congregations in Reno, Nevada, or in Central Valley, or in Sacramento, you are a part of this field test creative way of starting a new community wherever they are. And so with other things, you are supporting the work that I do. You are supporting the work that Bishop Megan's and all of the staff are doing. And the most special part of it as well is you are connected to the work that we do globally. I always tell the story that the communities that being helped in Cambodia by Lutheran World Federation, and if you are also doing some work with the Lutheran World Relief, but the Lutheran World Federation, through our mission support, is connected to how they rebuild their lives in Cambodia. You are a part of it. Their lives there, have you eaten? Have they eaten? Are connected to who we are and how we live our faith here in North America. That's how I see it. We are all connected.
Yeah, lots of people agree with you. Perry agrees with you.
That's true. That's true. We are all connected.
Yeah, I see so much of the work that happens kind of on kind of a global level being something that kind of provides support back. Not everybody kind of sees it that way, but I really appreciate kind of this time and attention that you put into things. We should name to people too that, like, in addition to kind of this DEM role, you are actually an assistant to the bishop as well, like an equal part of our staff of pastoral leaders that try to guide and shape the synod and try to provide care for folk. And yeah, I can't remember if we said that from the top, but I just wanted to name it because I think sometimes people forget that.
Yes. And I want you to share with you that the work of the M cannot be done by one person. Collaborative work with Bishop Megan, collaborative work with the two, you know, A to B's, collaborative work with all the staff, plus the witness discipling team and the stewardship guide as well, the work that we do. I cannot express my gratitude. There is no words to actually give my gratitude to all the work that you have been supporting. And probably you think that since you are sitting at the pew or your living room when you are giving your offering or participating in worship, that you aren't a part of it. You are already participating, but there are other ways if you want to know about that.
You also do some listening and discerning with congregations and folk in different parts of our synod. Like, for example, all of these socks that are created come out of like a listening and a discerning of what the need of a particular area is. Would you be willing to talk about the kind of how, like, what's a good way for people to connect with you? What kind of information do you normally need to do that kind of discernment process? Any thoughts you have on that?
Can I just give an example of how, for example, one new talk that we just about to start? The Afghani and Arab Middle Eastern ministry did not come out of my head. For example, there were conversations happening on how, and that came from congregations, 2 or 3 congregations in Carmichael area. Were talking about how they will know and notice that their neighborhood have been changing the past decade, and a lot of Afghani refugees have come. Arab and Middle Eastern ministry people have been living in those areas as well and beyond, and so it came out of that, and it started with a consultation. So we say, well, if there are things that you have observed, let's come. And it so happened that the Arab Middle Eastern ministry leadership are going to have their meeting. They decided to put it here in our synod, and we invited the conference to come, and also our Episcopal partnership partnership in that area. And it started with those common goals, and say, how can we respond to God's work among the Afghani and Arab Middle Eastern who now live in our neighborhood? So it came out of the prayers and observations and interactions of the people at the pews and their leadership, and ask the question, how can we respond to God? So it came out of that, and many consultations. They form a small group of leaders and lay leaders from those congregations to become brainstorming with me. We have met for over a year or so, and finding relationship with others as well, and connecting with churchwide, consulting always with the witness discipling team and with Bishop. And then finally we form this one, and then the discernment of who is going to be a leader, and then putting together a plan, prayer, discernment happened, praying about it, and finally we found a leader that who could come after this pandemic, but now currently in a student at PLTS. So one thing that you can do is be live your embodied Christian life in out the world, with your eyes and ears, that you see where God is already at work and responding to that. And in your prayer, pray for our new and strategic ministries. And the other one is invite us to holy conversations on vitality in your congregation during adult forums. Invite any of us, of course, Bishop Megan, and any of the assistant to the bishop to preach or be in adult forum. Promote. The other one that I have shared with you as Synod Vitality is through Acts for Vitality. This is our renewing initiative to journey and work with, accompany with congregations going through a process of transformation. This is not an adventure. An adventure, when you go through a process, perhaps you just have fun but never been transformed. We would like this to see as a quest, something where God is leading us and transforming us as we go through this vitality team, vitality transformational ministry. The other one is let's ask each other and learn, how do you do evangelism? Teach us, teach me, teach our teams. Or can we actually have a brainstorming? What are the things and ways that you do evangelism? The other one is, do you want to volunteer to be part of these working teams for a new start, or for envisioning a new partnership that could happen in your community? Or if you are a congregation thinking, how can we respond and be able to nurture life-giving relationship with God, with one another, and the world, then inquire about Acts for Vitality. You can be a member of the cohort. And I think the last one is ask our Synod witness discipling team and stewardship discipling team about what they do, and share with them what have you been learning. And I think the final one that I would say that is related to the last question you asked, Bishop Megan, was, I hope that we continually prioritize mission support, not because it's just about the money. It's not about the money, it's about relationship, because this is an expression, mission support is an expression of our being church together.
Yeah, I also think it's about like putting our money where our mouth is. Like, it's one thing to be like, we need to do anti-racism work, and then another thing to say, I hope they can afford it. The communities that we need to lift up, and so one of the things that I appreciate is that our synod has put like actual investment money into like being the full diversity of the church we know we need to be in the future. You talked about communities lifting stuff up. One of the other things that I think is really kind of neat that Lutherans are up to, that
Yes.
the seminary is up to, is the team program. Would you be willing to tell people what that acronym stands for and how people can lift up leaders for that?
Yes, I just look at their manual. There's so many things to, but I'm gonna give you a small, what's this? A snapshot of that. But I'll tell you a brief story. The first time that I encountered team or theological education for emerging ministries was when I was a seminarian, then at the Hill, at PLTS, and I was a cook for the gathered students of team students who are going to have a one whole week present in the campus. So this is a certification, or a non-degree uh, program of PLTS that is contextual and lifting up candidates for emerging ministries. And what when we say emerging ministries, is we already thought of what are the things. So there are four possible criterias of what they see. Of course, you have to identify and discern who are the leaders among you who could serve communities, like those especially in rural areas or in urban setting, that who can and know the community already coming out of your congregation, who are those communities that are BIPOC communities. As you all know, we are still learning how to lift up more and more BIPOC leaders, both lay and rostered, in our community. So this is team um, program is for communities that are looking for BIPOC leaders. Uh, and so those are the two major ones that I know, that where team candidates go to a congregation, and so they have a academic process in order for them to be able to minister while they are studying. So it's a more than 20-year-old program already of PLTS, if you could imagine, and they have graduated more than 200 leaders. Most of them, if not all, are ordained and serving various congregations in our church. And if in fact they are also been elected as bishops. Talking about Bishop Megan here. So
Yeah,
so
I
many
think it's
things have
such a
already.
wonderful thing that, like, even though you might start a different way, and even though it's a certification program and not a Master of Divinity degree, like you become a full pastor,
Yes.
kind of in the eyes of the church, which I think is a really lovely thing. I think some of the philosophy behind this idea, particularly that I'm really excited about, is that
Mhm.
in the history of the United States, there have been a number of actions that intentionally tried to discriminate against certain skin tones and made it harder for those groups of people to access education. And so if we made it only that people who could excel all the way to have a master's degree, or afford all of the things you have to do to get a master's degree, or have all of the time it
Mhm.
takes to get a master's degree, or all of the family support it might take, right? So there's so many things that have to come together for someone to be able to get all the way up to a master's degree. If we know that there are some communities that, not through their own fault, but through systemic levels of kind of hindering education, that it's harder for those communities to get that same equal footing,
Mhm.
then we would be limiting who could be a faithful person professionally in our churches in a way that wouldn't be helpful for our goals and wouldn't be consistent with our faith. And so
Yeah.
that, for me, what I appreciate about the team program is that,
Mhm.
like, the MDiv is like, if you think I want to be a pastor,
Yeah.
I shall apply to be a pastor, then you go through the regular program. But if a community says you should be a pastor, and the community lifts you up, then the team program is for these people who maybe a little bit more like Jonah
Mhm.
are informed that the community would like them to be a pastor. And so the hurdles are a little bit less
Mhm.
because the community has already chosen the person that they would like to be their leader, kind of through
Yeah.
lots of discernment.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I think you are talking about the first century Christian, where most of us are also bivocational, and it might be the future of the church is the same thing. These are people who are studying but already serving, the community that you mentioned, plus they know the community themselves firsthand. Just like what you are saying, the language, the culture, the landscape. Because they came from that community. Oh, just to mention, Bishop Megan. So
Yep.
currently, that we have some current team candidates that came out of those communities recently, and they were lifted up and say, "You have been volunteering. You have been doing this. You should be a pastor." And so now the whole community and say, "We are." This is also a good thing about stewardship. The community supports, and not only lifting up this person, but will support in order for them to be able to study while they're still doing their work, and ministering to as well at the same time.
And my family, since when you become bishop, you're not the pastor of a congregation anymore, have recently joined a new congregation that we will begin worshiping with when they are worshiping in person. And the pastor of that congregation is a team graduate. And
Mhm.
one of the people who have provided me with so much wisdom in my time kind of as a pastor, and in part, like, joining this congregation because it's a wonderful congregation, but also because I want to lift up the fact that team pastors are amazing pastors. Kind of, they bring a different kind of wisdom that you couldn't possibly teach in seminary, even if you tried, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned at the beginning of this that you come from 3 generations of Lutherans in the Philippines, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Would you be willing to describe what that church is like, for folk who maybe haven't heard about it? And if you'd like to lift up additional questions, you can put them in the comments, and we'll lift them up too.
Yes, thank you. Um, One of the major denominations that came a little bit late in the Philippines for mission was the Lutherans. And I've heard, when I was little, um, asking the question, so how did they decide that it should be Missouri Synod? Because they said, oh, it's Missouri Synod. And they said, oh, the North American Lutherans sort of divided the Asian community countries on where they're going. I do not know. Yeah, that's what I was told. So right after World War II, uh, the Philippines opened up again, and one of the last major denomination that came was the Lutheran. I remember that I interviewed my aunt because the first uh, chapel of the congregation, it was the third congregation that the missionaries have built in the Philippines. My aunt told me that 2 missionaries came to the town just outside Manila and asked the question, anyone who would like to start a church? And my aunt said, all of us raised our hands without knowing what is Lutheran. And then they went back, and then my grandparents, their parents, were there and say, we have a small land just across where I was born, and it could be the first chapel, and we will build a chapel there. And it has grown a lot, so they moved to another one, but in the inner part of our town. And it have a full-time missionary from United States. Uh, oh, Winniken, Pastor Gerald Winniken. Oh, I love him. And I grew up with him. We started that one, and then we grew again so much that um, we were able to, with the help of course missionaries and our own community, able to buy a new plot of land that is now our own, plus design the sanctuary based on our own cultural heritage. So that is the congregation that where I spent most of my faith formation when I was a teenager, because I was 10 years old when we moved to that new site, and we grew so much. That missionary left right after we moved there, and for the first time we also called our local homegrown, like a team candidate, never went to the seminary, but a very bright young man, had a engineering degree, and say, we want Danilo Zamora to be our pastor, and we're going to support him for the first time. A congregation said, we will not receive any more funding, but we will support our pastor. And that, I am so blessed to be a part of that ministry, because evangelism is part of who we are, and it's not conversion in sense, but in relationship. So we went to the urban poor. We went to the remote areas where an indigenous community and do not have any churches in that area. And we that congregation grew from like 150 to became 500 people and more, because we have to have two services, one in the morning and one in the evening. And then we have about 10 daughter churches, that is a way of sending us leaders. So my training as a young person is, we go to an indigenous community and stay there for one whole week to know them, but also to teach by vacation Bible school on summertime. And it was some of, I think, my faith formation and my leadership formation were honed by those relationships. So Emmanuel Lutheran Church were also a team candidate. Pastor Cora Aguilar, the first Filipina ordained in the ELCA, also came from. So both of us were baptized and confirmed, and in from that congregation, Emmanuel. Currently, we are now spread from the north to the south. It's still a small one, because, as you know, in terms of how big is ELCA, but I was just given a text by a young person, a youth in the place where we used to go for the indigenous community, and they are now finally building their sanctuary. The last one was washed by a big typhoon, because it's small one, and it has just a thin of ceiling. And now they are building a little bit better, so that more it will become now a community center for the communities around it. It's a little bit higher, in a higher elevation, in north of Manila. So is that a good description of my life as a oh oh my goodness, oh my, what a what a gift, Perry, thank you. The pastor there came from Emmanuel Lutheran Church. I want you to know, in Zambales. Yeah, yeah, Pastor Moscoso. Oh, wow.
I'm grateful that you answered that question, because you've been doing that work here now since you were a small child. And here I thought you just started here at the Sierra Pacific Synod.
No,
Wonderful. I love that.
and what a gift that we have someone who knows someone in Zambales.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What a
It's
gift.
it's a well-connected Lutheran world, even in the most remote places, I think, for sure.
Yes, yes. And I think I want you to know as well that a lot of, for example, Pastor Alexia Salvatierra,
Mm.
also his advocacy work was formed by the advocacy work in the Philippines.
Mm.
Yeah, they interned there during that time, and we're just coming out of martial law and a lot
Mm.
of the people's power during that time.
Mm.
So all of the faith formation, and of course, I'm not saying that I'm formed already, fully formed. I hope not.
We all got more work to do, right?
The capacity to learn is always there.
Well, one of the things that we did during this time of pandemic is that you and I both went aboard a big cargo ship. And I didn't know this about you, but you have done a lot of work with Seafarers, and you edited a book for Seafarers, translated.
And contextualized.
Will you tell people about why the Seafarer community has been important to you, and about some of the work that you've participated in the Bay Area with that?
Yes, of course. Personally, uh, three of my brother-in-laws and two of my brothers were seafarers. I do not know any family in the Philippines who do not have a seafarer or overseas immigrant workers. Um, and that's how I personally connect to that. So I know how difficult it is when a seafarer leave their family. And Bishop Megan, you heard some of their stories, and some of their prayer requests was all about their family that they left behind. And about 60% of seafarers, especially cargo and cruise ships, are Filipinos. This is also the second reason why I'm invested in this. We have a um, uh, uh, Lutheran Advocates for Maritime Ministry, LAM. Currently, they are our head office is in in New York, but we can you can volunteer. Or now that they're opening up, I actually just inquired. In fact, I think Tuesday tomorrow they're going to vaccinate seafarers, right? And um, in Oakland, um, and so this is an opportunity for us to be able to be there to welcome them, give hospitality, talk to them, because to be on a ship for 10 months. And by the way, it takes some of them that travel Asia and United States, it takes 3 months and then 3 months back, or 1.5 months. It depends on how long where the destination would be to be on the boat. And if there's a storm, of course, for cargo ships are really very difficult. The loneliness of leaving behind your family, the fear of violent typhoon in the middle. So the book that you're talking about are all scriptures and some prayers and reflection of scripture readings that has something to do with water. That's why it's called water, um, life and water. It's called the devotional book that we have been distributing. So that if you want to engage with that, Lutheran Advocates for Maritime Ministry, and it's not because I'm just Filipino. Can you imagine if we don't receive any of the things that you find in any supermarkets? Right? All of those are being brought by this crew in this big ship. And um and we are thankful for the work that they do, and a lot of sacrifice that they have to go through. Some of the volunteer things that you can do is even just taking them to Target. Some of them, they have not even been passing only the Golden Gate Bridge every time they come to Oakland Port, but never been on in Golden Gate Bridge. And just to smell fresh air and get out, they have sometimes a window of 2 hours or 3 hours that they can get off the boat or the ship, and then they will go again in 2 days. And so it's a ministry of presence and a ministry of hospitality, advocacy, because some of them are also unjustly treated, or they are in the international um, uh, laws, covered by international laws. And so there are many ways to be able to lift them up in your prayers, and also serve if you want to.
Yeah, and I appreciated going with you because it's there's one thing that you learn when you go as a chaplain, kind of supporting people on a ship where a tough thing has happened. And we
Mhm.
went during COVID when no one was allowed to leave the ship, and we're some of the only humans outside of the others on the ship that they would get to talk to. And so it's such a lovely gift to be able to kind of care for people and
Mhm.
expand your prayer list to be able to think not only about those on land, but those on sea and all of the different places they travel to. Yeah.
Bishop Megan, remember when we went there, they have been here for at the port for several days, but they didn't have any food for 2 weeks when they were in the middle of the sea. and they only have rice and salt and whatever they can eat, because and this is the violation sometimes of capitalism happen, you know, and just to see them still smiling and say we're safe, and we want you to pray for our families back home. um, and just to see that, you know, it gives you hope as well. We received a lot from them too, right? I don't know. For me, it's just to
Yeah.
see their faces and still hoping
Yeah.
in a positive way, and trusting God
Yeah.
that God will be with them no matter what is a gift for me as well.
Yeah. They live on the ships for 10 months, maybe years at a time, and have very little communication with family members unless they have certain accesses or pay out part of their money to be able to have internet access. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of ways that someone might be invested in having the cargo get there safely. But sometimes companies go bankrupt while the ship's on at sea, and there's no one to care for folk after that. And so it really is a fruitful ministry and important work to care about for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if they have what can we learn from the people who are in this place.
Yeah.
Well,
Folk who are watching on the live stream, what are the things you think that our synod or that Pastor Tita should be thinking about as we support the mission and work of our synod? Anyone have anything they want to lift up? And there's a slight delay, so we'll see if anyone has anything they want to post. And know that if you're not watching this live, you can also keep adding to the comments, and we'll check in on them too. So if you have ideas of things you want us to think about or look into, we'd be really happy to do that.
I think possibly you love demographics and a trivia about language, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I didn't learn this only until recently. So the main languages that are spoken, the top three in our where we are, including Nevada, of course, is English, then is Spanish, and then I thought it's Chinese, but it's not. It's Tagalog.
That's wonderful.
And probably in my town in Alameda, we were taking, you know, the Chinese speakers are more than the Tagalog speakers, but in general, the Tagalog speakers are also very much in our communities, and of course we are. I'm sure that even in the school of your children, Bishop Megan, my child, in there are about 30 languages spoken in the school,
Hmm.
so it's
Yeah,
amazing how our work on diversity is important.
I know from my time as a chaplain with the San Francisco Police Department that the officers in San Francisco spoke over 300 languages.
Wow.
Um, but primarily their need for translators mostly was Tagalog. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, we have an idea being lifted up.
Fantastic. Lori, where please just ask put on where are you? Currently we have one
Mhm.
Hmong community, and you will I hope that you can visit this, and probably that's an idea. Let's go and visit these congregations and community. So the Hmong community has been in Fresno. Okay. Okay, yes.
More ideas? Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So our Grace Lutheran Church is a Hmong congregation that has been there for more than 30 years. They're started as an outreach of grace, and now they are all 100% um, Hmong community. Okay, we will. I am writing it down.
Yeah. Yeah, feel free to lift up ideas and communities that you think we should reach out to. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, Lori case. Okay.
Oh, we got some more ideas popping in.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, activity for the work of non-U.S. citizens,
Yes.
and yep.
Yes. So thank you, Perry. So you are also talking about immigrants, right?
Mhm.
Advocacy for immigrants and
Mhm.
refugees. So uh, we have both of them in our in our synod. So we have still first generation immigrant
Mhm.
churches, and
Mhm.
some of them are first generation refugee congregations. So um, yeah, no, the work that we do, the collaboration grant has given a group of congregations and now working with Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity. And in fact, they're going to talk about on how to partner with congregations to train them to accompany a newly arrived immigrants or those who are going through immigration processes.
Mm.
So um, please contact, either Bishop Megan or I, and see how you can connect. It's um, Mary Ritter, our amazing person who is leading this, and connect with them on how to do this training.
Yeah. We have uh, an idea of continued support for the Spanish speaking communities and the joy that comes from building relationships in ever changing world. This this idea from a Spanish speaking pastor from the Napa Valley area with some
Yes,
development skills.
yes, Jill. No, thank you very much. I fully agree. We need more communities. You have seen that 30 to 40% of our new starts are Spanish speaking. Yeah,
Mhm.
or more, I think. Yeah, that's true. So that's another idea.
Yeah. See, it's your ideas in action. You can actually hear it being written down. I like it.
And we'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful, Pastor Tita, that you spent this time kind of explaining some of the work that we're up to. So often we put a lot of it in text,
Yeah.
and so I like that. I like that you had the kind of opportunity to come and share some of the work that you've been up to, and
Mhm.
it helps me personally learn what all the acronyms mean when we're in communities, and so I hope that for those around the synod who want to learn more about some of the mission work that we're doing, some of the particularly the ethnic ministry work that we're doing, to get some of that vocabulary,
Mhm.
and also to feel energized, to feel like maybe your community or your geography could
Mhm.
lift up a service project. And I think I'm going to use this video for the communities who have thought that they needed to do all of the outreach to the changing community around them. And I love this idea that you're a partner for them to help them kind of listen and work on what might be coming next for the communities around them, whether it's birthing a congregation or birthing a SOC, uh,
Mhm.
or birthing a new faith leader,
Yes.
but to be
Yeah.
a part of that conversation. So
Or
I'm
or
yeah.
other holy experiments that you can do with one another. Do you have in your cohorts of congregations next to each other? Do you have an idea of holy experimentation and not afraid to say, "Oh, this is a failure right away," or "We have done this before." Things like that. No, go ahead and see what God is already doing and respond to it. I'm gonna actually send, if that is okay, Bishop Megan, on my email, because in you know, did it come? My email.
I'm posting it right now so that everyone will see it where they are.
Mhm. I think while we are waiting, another way of doing this, of being of getting involved. Some of our congregations, by the way, especially the Spanish speaking or other languages, they need resources. A good example is we need Spanish Bibles. We have already 3 or 4 congregation new starts that were they can, and if you want to donate, please let us know, or we can buy a bulk and just give the certain amount for one, and we can put your name that it came from your congregation or for your individual. But we know already that we need um, hymnals and Bibles in Spanish, if you can do that. Um, and then we also have congregations, for example, in Sanger. They're quite new there, so it's a Presbyterian Lutheran. But if you have things that you use for Sunday school, for their kids, because when I went there, there are already lots of kids, both in Sanger and in Stockton, and even at in Fresno, they have a Friday night kids club there, and then they have a small garden for our new starts. They are a welcoming and affirming congregation, garden for kids who have disability, and together with their parents, they are have a community garden there. So give me a call. But we are looking for resources like those that I have mentioned.
Well, and as a teaser for people to pay attention to what the Synod is up to, we are planning to have a person. You might have seen this if you checked out my leadership vision plan that I let the Synod know about, but we're hoping to have a person on Synod staff who is thinking about translating young adults worship materials and catechism resources in a progressive way. Since so much of the Spanish speaking materials that we have right now is made by the Missouri Synod Church, but to have resources that are as diverse and progressive as our Lutheran community, but those materials then would be translated communally by folk throughout the Sierra Pacific Synod. So stay tuned to learn more about that.
And if you know anything from other communities like Hmong language, Lao language, Korean, we have those, and a Lahu. The Lahu one is the ones that are quite hard. But if you know any resources in your neighborhood or full communion partners, please let us know.
We got a great idea from Perry that our Synod Resource Center should add more media in diverse languages. And I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yes.
And I think I'm meeting with that team tomorrow, so I will let them know. Yeah. Is there, and do you want to have any final thoughts or comments that you want to leave people with before we say goodnight?
Yeah, I know. This is not like a Tita, you are promoting. This is like a commercial. However, when I was starting and when I moved here back to the Bay Area, one of the things that I heard from most of our pastors, and that time it's not congregational vitality yet, was, isn't it, Tita, that all of us are redevelopers, right? But redevelopers not for a certain period of time. We as a congregation, throughout our 2,000 years of history, we renew our communities. So the Acts for Vitality before is only at the church-wide level of redevelopment. We are bringing it here locally through cohorts of congregation. Before, your cohort is in other places, but now locally, learning from one another and bringing resource people who have gone not only training, but they have gone through teaching and presenting all of the things that might, a tool that might be helpful for you. And the Acts for Vitality team worked hard on this for more than a year, bringing also all the resources that we have learned from other DEMs and the churchwide and full communion partners. So if your congregation is listening, please inquire about it, and we can I can connect you to a Acts for Vitality member who can talk to you more about it, and we can come and do an orientation if you are thinking to be a part of Acts for Vitality cohort. It is the transformational or redevelopment or renewal, whatever you want to call it, initiative of bringing to the local community, local congregations, this transformational journey.
Well, I want to thank you for your time here tonight, for the work that you do, for agreeing to stay on and be a part of this kind of new bishop and what's happening in our synod. And by extension of thanking you, to thank the teams that you work with on a regular basis, your discipling teams, your Act for Vitality team, all of the folk. Because one thing is almost always clear to me whenever Tita is sharing information about what the synod is up to, is that Tita very rarely does something by herself. Right? You're almost always in committee or in a team or in a cohort or working with the folk at Churchwide or talking with people globally. And it's one of my delightful favorite things about your presence, kind of both on a one-to-one level and as someone working in the same staff with you now, is that you always come with a communal wisdom, which I appreciate.
And as a synod, we are all right. We bring with I bring with you. I bring with myself all of you in our synod, in everything that we do together. Thank you to all of you. And Bishop Megan, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you all next time.